They say that the greatest journeys are not measured in miles, but in moments that change the heart. This is a story of a young man from Toronto, a Christian by faith, who found himself beaconed by the unseen, led by light, and called by a name he had only read about in the pages of a book about a holy saint, Ali ibn Musa al-Reza alayhi salam. All praise be to the one who created the heavens and the earth, the shining sun and the radiant moon, the clouds which give shade, the food that nourishes us, and the water that sustains us, the creator of joy and happiness, and the creator of you and I. Welcome to Marefa podcast by no one, your weekly spiritual sanctuary, a place where stillness speaks and the ordinary whispers the extraordinary. So take a deep breath. Feel the weight of the world fall off. Step with us, not into noise, but into stillness, not into chaos, but into clarity. As the world rushes by, we choose to pause, we choose to listen, and we choose to remember. Let us begin. This is a story of a young Canadian, an experience that led him on a journey from Toronto to Mashad, to the shrine of Imam Reza alayhi salam. It was a cold winter night in 1992. I entered the courtyard by the name of Sahn-e-Inqilab. The cold penetrated to the very depths of one's bones, and no one dared to leave the comfort of their homes in such a weather. There was a pin drop silence in the courtyard. I was in the area between the courtyard of Inqilab and the courtyard of the mosque of Mashad. There I noticed a young man, about 35 years old, with a fairly large travel bag. He was asking people for directions, but seemed unable to get an answer. The caretaker says, he approached me and says, "Good evening, sir." He spoke English with a Canadian accent. When I replied in the same language, much to his pleasure, he exhaled a sigh of relief. The Canadian says, "Excuse me, but where can I find Mr. Reza? I want to see him." The caretaker, with a confusion on his face, his head spinning, he says, I collected myself and asked him, "Sorry, but who are you?" The young Canadian responded, "I am a law student at the University of Toronto, from Canada. I'm originally from Lebanon, but I was born in Canada, and I'm a Christian." "So you are a Christian?" the caretaker asked. "Yes," responded the Canadian. Astonished with finding this person, the caretaker asked, "What are you doing here?" The Canadian responds, "I've been invited to meet Mr. Reza." The caretaker, with more confusion, "Who invited you?" "He did," he responds. The caretaker, "I was bewildered. Despite all the religious outreach and history that I knew, both within and outside the country, I'd never heard of someone being personally invited by Imam Ali ibn Musa, especially not a young Canadian Christian. I continued and asked him, "Have you seen him?" The Canadian responds, "Yes, 3 or 4 times." The caretaker says, "This was becoming difficult to believe." I asked, "You mean you've seen Mr. Reza with your own eyes?" And the Canadian responds, "Yes, I've seen him in my dreams." So the caretaker asks, "Would you recognize him if you see him now?" And the Canadian says, "Yes, of course." I was truly intrigued So I asked him if he would be willing to sit down and talk to me for a few minutes. I was overwhelmed with excitement. My heart was pounding. I asked, "Can you tell me how you became acquainted with Mr. Reza? Can you elaborate?" We both sat down, and then the Canadian continued, "Yes, of course. One night, I was walking down the street in Toronto when I saw a small crowd and a lot of traffic. A nearby building was brightly lit and heavily decorated. I became curious about what was happening. It turned out to be a mosque, and they were having a celebration. I entered the mosque to see what was going on. Some of them stood up out of respect for me and welcomed me and made me sit beside them. They immediately served me sweets, ice creams, and chocolate. A sermon was being delivered in English, and everyone was listening attentively. I became engrossed in the sermon. It was my first time hearing about Islam directly from a Muslim preacher. On the way out, they were handing out a book to everyone. They gave me one too, which delighted me, and I thanked them. I started walking home, so deeply immersed in a thought about what I had heard that I did not even realize when I arrived at my home. I changed into my pajamas, laid down on my bed, and took the book with me to look at it, as I knew I would not have the opportunity the next day. I started reading the book while lying down on my bed. The book completely captivated me. I could not stop reading. I would not allow myself to put it down until I had read every single page. That book was about a Muslim saint named Mr. Reza. His cherished personality and his sermons fascinated me, conquering my thoughts. My entire being became immersed in thinking about this saint. Lying in my bed, though I could not sleep until morning, I eventually dozed off for a few moments. I entered a dreamland, a spiritual and a heavenly place, unlike anything I had ever seen or I could have imagined. There, I saw a man with a bright, luminous face, a heavenly being I had never encountered before. I asked him to sit with me for a few moments, and he accepted. After he sat down, he asked me with the most beautiful smile, "Do you want something from me?" I was dumbstruck and could hardly speak. I stammered, Yes, but unfortunately, I don't know you." The man said, "You don't recognize me? I am Mr. Reza, Ali ibn Musa al-Reza," I exclaimed. "I've heard that name, but I do not seem to recall. I'm the one you could not stop reading about. Towards the end of the book, you said in your heart, 'Oh God, if there is such a saint, I would love to see him.'" When I heard this, I felt like a flower blossoming and asked, "I would really like to see you in person." To which Mr. Reza responded, "Well, you can be my guest." "Your guest?" I asked. "That's amazing. But where do you live?" Mr. Reza responded, "Iran." The Canadian asked, "Where is Iran?" And Mr. Musa responds, "In a city called Mashhad." The Canadian, thoughts raced through my mind. I knew of Iran, but I've never heard of the city named Mashhad. It would not be easy for me to go to such a city, financially due to unfamiliarity with the region and for other reasons. Yet, I asked him, "How can I come visit and see you?" Mr. Rosa replied, "I will provide the means." Then, he gave me the name and a phone number of an airline ticket agent, along with an address and a specific instruction, a sign, though he did not specify what it was, the caretaker says. The Canadian continues about his dream. He said Mr. Reza told him When you go there, go to the person behind desk number 4 and give him this sign, and they will give you a ticket and the address where you can find me. When I woke up, I did not take this dream seriously. However, I saw him again in my dream for the next 2 nights. On the last night, he asked me, "Why haven't you gotten the tickets yet?" The moment he spoke those words, I woke up. I was sweating profusely. My heart was pounding and I could not sleep a wink. I lay there counting the minutes until the office hours of the ticket agent. The address and the location were exactly as he had described in my dream. When I entered the travel agency and introduced myself to the agent sitting behind desk number 4, he responded, "Your ticket was issued days ago. Why didn't you come to get it? You don't have much time until your flight." I asked about the cost, to which the travel agent replied, "Your entire ticket has already been paid for." I looked at the ticket he handed over to me. It was routed Toronto, London, Tehran, Mashhad, and the return Mashhad, Tehran, London, and Toronto. The caretaker at the shrine of the Imam Reza, after hearing these words from the young Canadian Christian, I became incredibly excited. My face flushed, my heartbeat intensified. I began to tremble. The Canadian continues, "I've just arrived." I told the taxi driver at the airport, "Take me to the house of Mr. Ali ibn Musa al-Reza." And he brought me here. Now I don't know how to meet him. The caretaker says, I was so visibly moved that the young Canadian noticed my trembling and the change in my complexion. He asked, "Did something happen? Are you okay? You don't look so well." The caretaker responds, No, I'm quite alright. I'm just so happy to see you and to know that you've been blessed with an invitation to meet Mr. Ali ibn Musa al-Reza. I'm truly delighted and overjoyed." The Canadian asks, "But why?" The caretaker responds, "Because this man is one of the greatest heavenly saints. God has placed him amongst us, and anyone who sincerely wishes to meet him, he is blessed with his attention, even if only for a brief moment." The Canadian could not bear it any longer. He pleaded, "May I beg you to please take me to this gentleman as soon as possible?" The caretaker narrates, "We left a suitcase and shoes in the designated area near the Gorshad Mosque and entered the Haram, the sacred sanctuary. We had barely descended the flights of stairs towards the shrine, the Zarih, when he saw a huge crowd. He asks, "This massive crowd? What are they all doing here tonight?" The caretaker says, "They are like you and I. They have come to meet Mr. Reza." The Canadian, with confusion apparent on his face, "But I thought he invited only me to visit him. I thought it was a private visit. Now in this bustle, how can I meet him? I was hoping to meet him alone." The caretaker says, "Did he not invite you?" The Canadian responds, "Yes." "Then let him take care of the meeting." The Canadian asks, "But how will we introduce ourselves to him?" And the caretaker responds, "He does not need you to introduce yourself. Just as he came to you in your dream, he will find you." It was touching to see the surprise and wonder in his eyes. He did not ask any further detail, and we continued down the stairs towards the Zarih. He did not yet understand what the Zarih was. The Canadian, muttering perhaps to himself, "Surely he must be sitting somewhere on a higher throne," and people are waiting for him. The caretaker asks, "No." The Canadian, with a note of pessimism in his voice, "I hope he's not just a figment of imagination, that he actually exists." And the caretaker responds, "Quite the contrary. He is a very real man. An imaginary being could not have invited you from one corner of the world to the other. He gave you the address and provided you with a return ticket." After a while, we got closer to the Zarih. The Canadian asked, "Why are these people pressed against this cage-like structure?" The Zarih, "Is he inside it? Is it possible to see him?" And the caretaker says, "Yes." He asks, "How so?" And the caretaker responds, "Just as you perceive God in your heart." And the Canadian asks, "Yes, that's right." The caretaker then asks, "Have you seen Jesus?" And the Canadian responds, "Yes, many times, but in my dreams." Then the caretaker continued, "Mr. Reza will show himself to you. He was killed by his enemy over 1,000 years ago." More confusion was spilling over the Canadian's face. "But how will he contact me now?" And the caretaker responds, "Don't you know how God communicates with humans? How do you connect with Mary and Jesus?" Canadian says, "Well, in the Western world, the scientists and the psychoanalysts talk about something." And the caretaker interrupts, "Telepathy?" And his response is, "Yes, that's right." The caretaker continues, "After some more conversation and to avoid the densest part of the crowd, I led him towards the area near the head of the Zarih and said, 'You should stand here to see the gentleman himself.' Then I opened a prayer book and began to recite the ziyarah besides him. But to be honest, my focus was on the Canadian, who did not understand a word of it. He gazed at the Zarih, completely immersed and mesmerized, and suddenly he spoke, 'Mr. Reza.' And without any formal greeting, he continued, 'You invited me and I've come.' He spoke with Imam Reza for almost an hour and a half. Tears streamed down his cheek throughout their entire conversation, his face wet with them. I understood some of his words, but not all. But once the conversation ended, I remarked, 'I did not expect you to meet someone and cry like that.' The Canadian, with tears streaming down his eyes, 'I never thought I could break down like this, but the attraction of this heavenly saint overwhelmed me, and I burst into tears, especially when he said goodbye and telling me, "You are tired. Go and relax. I will wait for you tomorrow." I could not bear the thought of separating from this holy saint, and it made me cry even more." The caretaker narrates, without the Canadian offering any formal prayers. Yet, we left the shrine. I booked a twin room at a nearby hotel so I could stay close to him and follow his story. He rested for a while, and then we went for dinner. After dinner, my curiosity getting the better part of me, I asked, "What did you talk about with Mr. Reza?" The Canadian says, "I asked him many questions about the world, the hereafter, the humanity, the destiny of a man, and the future of mankind, and he answered them all. Then he instructed me, if you want to see the bright doors of life and the paradise of this world and the hereafter, be sure to look into the Qur'an." I asked him, "I've heard the name of this book called Qur'an, but I've never really looked into it. He recited some verses of the Qur'an for me in such a charming and beautiful tone. I was so absorbed in the recitation that I involuntarily started to cry. From that moment, I became fascinated by the Qur'an and said to him, I hope I can read the Qur'an and enjoy it and benefit from it. And he responds, if you want to fully benefit from this book, you need to accept its roots and its origins. I asked Mr. Reza, what are the roots and origins of this book? And then he explained to me the lineage of the divine prophets, beginning with Adam and culminating with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He spoke of Prophet Muhammad and his successors, explaining that he, Ali ibn Musa Reza, is the eighth successor. He told me that just as I had accepted Jesus, I should also accept the other prophets and successors of the final prophet, so that my faith would be complete and I could derive the most benefit from the Quran. The caretaker, my curiosity growing with every word. Well, did he, Mr. Reza, tell you anything else? The Canadian responded, yes. He explained the 5 principles of belief to me. The excitement of the caretaker had overtaken him. And what about those 5 principles? The Canadian, taking out a piece of paper on which he had taken notes, he read aloud: Tawheed, oneness of God; Nubuwwah, prophethood; Adl, divine justice; Imama, the vicegerency; and Mashad, resurrection. He then elaborated on the belief in the Day of Judgment. I told him, I have never heard of these 5 principles in any other religion. The caretaker asked him, did he tell you the name of this religion? The Canadian, incidentally, yes. I asked him, what religion do you follow? And Mr. Reza responded, the religion of Islam. Until one is a Muslim, they will not find true happiness in this world or the hereafter. The caretaker asks him, so what did you do? And the Canadian responds, I became Muslim through him right then and there. Caretaker, with a mixture of excitement, wonder, and an intense curiosity, he asks, how did you become a Muslim? What words did you say? And the Canadian says, I first learned these words and then proclaimed them and then recited in front of me in an accented Arabic. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah wa ashhadu anna Aliyan waliyullah. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger, and Ali is his wali, his vicegerent. The caretaker says, I did not want to tire him further, so I let him rest in solitude. We rested for the evening. As usual, I woke up before the morning prayer to visit the shrine of Imam Reza. While I was about to leave, he woke up as well and asked, where are you going? And I responded, I'm going to visit Ali ibn Musa Reza. Wait, I will come with you. But you spoke with him for an hour and a half, just a few hours ago. And the Canadian says, yes, but I have so much more to discuss with him. My conversation is far from over. The caretaker continues. When we were once again standing near the head of the Zarih, where Imam alayhi salam is buried, he gazed at the shrine and his connection with the Imam was reestablished. He began to converse with him again. Once he was finished, I saw that he went and performed ablution and began to pray in an accented Arabic, without anyone having taught him a single word. Once he finished his prayer, he told me, in my final moments when Mr. Ali ibn Musa al-Reza, just now, I told him that my heart deeply desires to come and see him again. Congratulations to the Imam of the time on the birth anniversary of Imam Reza alayhi salam. May Imam Reza accept this humble effort and on this auspicious day give us the great gift of meeting and doing his ziyarat in the haqiqi sense, just like this Canadian was bestowed with the blessing. And by the right of Imam Reza alayhi salam, we ask him that we are able to do the ziyarah of our own Imam. May Allah hasten his appearance. Thank you for listening, and as always, all praise belongs to him, and the shortcomings are mine.